Good afternoon, especially to those who are joining me live for Table Talk on Tuesday, August 25th. We are almost coming to the end, actually, of our summer Table Talk series. I'm going to be finishing my look at The Gospel Comes with a House Key next week. We're doing chapter 10 this week, which is the last full chapter, and then she has a conclusion as well, and I'm going to take that opportunity to summarize not only what she does in the conclusion, but to have some takeaways for us as a church from this great book. I believe Pastor Andrew's also looking to finish his work with the Psalms next week, and Luke as well with his family Bible reading time on Thursdays. We're going to continue doing Table Talk in the fall, but it'll look a little different. We'll still do our roundtables on Friday, and then we'll see what we do during the week. Just stay tuned for that. As I said, we're doing chapter 10. You can turn there if you've got the book at home. It's page 199. This chapter is called Walking the Emmaus Road. That's picking up, of course, on the Road to Emmaus story that we see in Luke 24, I believe it is. And she's picking up on that to theme her chapter. And she subtitles it The Future of Hospitality. And I can actually read a fair bit of this chapter because it's much shorter than her typical one. I'm going to pick it up not at the beginning, but picking up that story. Remember Hank, this is her neighbor that has been, at this point, arrested. He had a housemate come alongside him, a girlfriend presumably named Amy. And this is some of that story of Amy. This is picking up on page 201, the bottom. A month before Hank was arrested, a bony, pink-haired woman named Amy moved into his house. She had hollow cheeks and those open sores on her face common to all the drug addicts I have ever known. She mumbled soft hellos, eyes averted, head down. After Amy moved in, strange things started to happen. Tank began running away again. He spent more and more time wandering the streets. Whole threads on the Nextdoor app went like this. Tank's out again. Does anyone know who the big gray pit bull belongs to? I'm calling the dog catcher. Something has to be done. I almost ran over that dog last night coming home from work. One morning at 4:30, I opened the back door to take out the recycling, and Tank was just sitting there waiting for me with his soulful eyes, boasting a story I was too dumb to read. I brought him in and fed him, and he curled up on the couch for a snooze. When Mary and Knox awoke, they loved on him. We walked him and played with him, and they tried to return him to Hank. We went over and rang the bell, knocked on the door, and texted, but no one answered us. This became our ritual. Hank stopped walking with us or working in his garden, and we missed him. Other strange behavior followed. Hank bought a brand new truck. On the second day it was parked in his driveway. Torrential rains came. Amy left the passenger side door open all night long, and a torrent poured in and through its seats and carpet, water drenching the wires. Ruined. It went from pristine new to broken trash in one act of carelessness. Amy loved the children, or so she said, and talked with me about her sadness at losing custody of hers. One day she came over with 2 heavy black garbage bags full of clothes. She said that she was up all night thinking about our family and wanting to do something for us. So she went dumpster diving on garbage day and found some clothes that she thought would be perfect. She even found something for me. With the desire to please bubbling behind her sad gray eyes, she declared, I found you a cute little black shift, size 6. The hem sits just above the knees. It'll look really classy on you when you go and give your lectures. I gave Amy a hug, but sequestered the garbage bag in the carport, planning to stick it in the garbage as soon as I could do so without notice. Amy felt hollow to the touch. Hugging her felt like killing her. She was bone thin and fragile. I pulled back. The Lord's day before the arrest, Amy was standing in the front yard, looking forlorn. I was returning from a dog walk, and she walked across the street to greet me. She looked awful, bony, open sores on her face, her thin, falling out hair greasy and matted against her scalp and around the temples. Her empty eyes were red with exhaustion. She started to speak, but her voice was so raspy hoarse that I could barely hear her. I leaned in and instinctively recoiled. Her breath and body odor were nauseous, worse than cigarettes and vomit. But I heard the request clearly. Rosaria, can I talk with you alone about something? Hank is being, weird. Something is wrong, bad wrong. I'm ashamed to tell you what I said. I said, this is a tight week for me. Homeschooling and travel. Can we talk next week? That's what I said. Seasoned to rejection, Amy took mine in stride with the lifetime that preceded it. I thought nothing of my sin against her for the precious few days that it hung dormant in the air, yet unfulfilled. Only when the DEA swarmed the house, dragging out my neighbors like pieces of trash, did the finger of God's conviction tap me on the shoulder. The Good Samaritan went out of his way. I protected my time and space. Watching the hazmat team suit up and tear through the front door, I remembered. My dodging of a conversation with Amy came back with a force that only God's conviction of sin can give. And only then did I stop to ponder it. What did Amy want to tell me? That she needed help? That they were cooking meth in the basement garden tub? Maybe she would have asked me to help her get out. Who knows? I will never know what she would have said, but this I know for sure. I could have helped, but I was too busy and too selfish to notice. Well, if you have been reading, and even if you don't have the book, have been following just what I've been reading, it would be easy to put Rosaria up on a pedestal and think of her level of hospitality is indeed so radical and so beyond what we offer meagerly to even our church friends, let alone our neighbors and those around us. So this is a helpful reminder that all of us are indeed very human, and all of us fall short of God's best and God's ideals. And here she shares very transparently a time when she dropped the ball. Now, and I know probably you and I can both think of situations. I know I can in my life. Linda and I both can share stories of where we felt a time, perhaps a season of God's grace to do something or an inspiration to do something, and we just don't act on it. And then it seems like that season of grace passes, and you're left wondering what may have been if I had only been obedient to God's prompting. And fortunately, this story, not all stories end like this, and I'm sure Rosaria could tell other ones as well, but she does get a second chance. And I think I read in a couple of chapters ago, mentioned or related that Hank came to faith in prison, and the same ultimately happened to Amy as well. She also was convicted and sent to prison. We'll pick this up now on page 204. And Rosaria, just as a little bit of background, was saying how she was writing letters to Hank and her kids as well. And Hank just encouraged her to connect with Amy because Hank had them, but Amy had nobody in her life that was connecting with her. And so Rosaria did start to write. She sent Bibles, ultimately, very readable Bibles for both Hank and Amy. I'll pick this up at page 204. first talking about Hank's letters, but write to us he does, and we write back. Ken visits him in jail, and we send him books. We sent him the NIV Life Hacks Bible and self-care books, and the novels I'm reading to the children so that he can stay on the same page with us. Christopher Iwan sent him out of a far country with a note that said, I understand. And Lynn and Drew Gordon from Crown and Covenant Publications sent other books about Christian living with warm letters of welcome and belonging in the family of God. Friends from church, friends from whom he met at our house on Thanksgiving or Christmas or Easter, sent letters and history books and writing journals. I pause and think about this a lot. God's providence preordained that Hank would spend holidays with the Christians who open arms wide and claim him. Where else would my meth-addicted neighbor meet church family apart from our table? Where would I have met my church family apart from Ken and Floyd's table? What a great little, I think, reflection that she's got, not only on the importance of opening up their home to these strangers, to these recluses, Hank and ultimately Amy as well. Because where else would they have found the church? Whether you think of that in capital C terms, globally, like God's people, or in a very localized sense, her Presbyterian church. Where else would Hank have found that but at her hospitality table? And then she thinks full circle, what about me? It's not just for those that are obviously downtrodden, like the Hanks of the world. How about me? I also was once hopeless and without God in the world, and somebody opened up their home to me. And she thought back to, of course, Ken and Floyd, Ken being the pastor and his wife that led her to the Lord. It's a great little reflection. Moving on to, actually, maybe I'll take a moment here to go back. We've got some time. I do want to read just how she started this chapter. It might be a good time to insert this now. She uses that story from the Gospel of Luke, the road to Emmaus. And this is chapter 24 indeed, 13 through 17. That very day, two of them were going to a village named Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem, and they were talking with each other about the things that had happened. While they were talking and discussing together, Jesus drew himself near and went with them. But their eyes were kept from recognizing him. And he said to them, "What is this conversation that you are holding with each other as you walk?" And they stood still, looking sad. Well, Rosaria comments here a couple of really interesting things. She says, this passage in Luke spills over with grace and care. Jesus models here what the future of our daily, ordinary, radical hospitality is about. First, Jesus does not come with a lesson. He comes with a question. And then he listens compassionately as the two share pain, disappointment, abandonment, and betrayal. The pain in their heart is extreme, so much so that they must stop walking to compose themselves. And they don't just stop, they stand still. The drama in the narrative halts with this reality, and they stood still, looking sad. They're going somewhere, but they don't know why. They lose their vision, and a question derails them. That happens to a lot of people. Jesus does not hurry them. He does not jolly them. He does not fear their pain or even the wrong-minded notions of who Christ should be or is. Wow, this is really important. I'm going to continue reading, but boy, if we could take a few minutes just to reflect on that, even in silence, that would be really good. Because so often we are so quick to interject final answers when we need to really just come alongside somebody and listen to their story, feel their pain with them. He knows that the process is important. He knows that grief and lamentation are vital to the soul. The Christian life is not a math test. A whole lot more than the answer matters a whole lot more. So he accompanies them in their suffering, and we need to do the same. When people are willing to stop and tell us where they hurt, we need to praise God for it, and we need to stop what we're doing, shut our mouths, and listen with care. Yeah, that's great. I'll stop there. I want to keep going in a way, but it's really good. But boy, what a great lesson. I've said, similar things so often. Certainly, I've met with life groups when we've been going through our evangelism talks, and sometimes people will ask questions or they'll say, how would you have answered something in this situation? And, so often we're way too worried about having the right answer for something rather than the right attitude towards something or somebody. You know, we, I think back, I have seen people come to faith through dialogue, apologetic dialogue. I remember in Oxford, I ran uh, a Bible study weekly for non-believers, and I ran it for, I think, it's probably about 7 months long, and it was very effective ultimately. But even though I saw many of those people come to faith, I don't think it was as much through, the week by week, individual answers that I gave that were clever or witty or anything. A lot of that was just me digging into relationship with them, understanding them, and yes, answering questions, but certainly a lot of listening and answering and even asking questions that were based on my listening. So more than, great answers that I was giving, it was more the time that I was giving them and allowing, the Spirit of God to work upon their hearts. And of course, other people came alongside as well. It wasn't just them sitting in my weekly Bible study. Some of them started coming out to church, befriended other people, and lo and behold, God brought, I think, every one of those members of that Bible study to faith that stuck with it, save one. And I don't know the result on that one gentleman. I've lost contact with him. But again, people, it's an old adage, but it's so true. People don't care about how much you know. They want to know how much you care. And that can sound a little trite, but boy, it is so true. People want to know how much you care, not they don't care how much you know. Well, just to finish off, I wanted to read near the end of the chapter. I think she closes it out really, really effectively. Yeah, on page 207. So I already gave away the game a little bit, saying that Amy does come to faith. It's a great story in itself, of course, and she starts to write letters with Amy. And one day she had a letter from Amy sitting on her desk, and she was hoping to answer that within a week. The letter was hopeful in it. She shares I've been here almost a year now, and I was thinking about you. I think I'm doing okay for being here so long. God bless you, my friend. Tell everyone I say hello and send my love. Well, before I could respond to that letter, another one came in the mail. I have big news. I accepted a plea bargain for a 10-year term. It's called an open plea, which means the judge decides how long. I hope I made the right decision. 10 years is a long time, but I plan to use my time well. I hope to finish my GED and get a job in prison. That's her high school certificate. I'm not sad, so don't worry about me. I worry about Hank and my children. I know 10 years is long, but this is God's will. I have a lot more in my life now than I have ever had. I have sobriety, faith, salvation, and hope in God. Please give everyone my love and thanks for the extra eye care package that you and Susanna sent last week. That's a food package. I hope someday to pay you back for all this. I pray for you every day. Amy taught me that we put a hand in the hurting, put the hand of the hurting into the hand of the Savior when we walk the Emmaus road with them. And that is the heart of the gospel. Amy's situation reminds me of Psalm 147, verses 2 to 4. The Lord builds up Jerusalem. He gathers the outcasts of Israel. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. He determines the number of the stars and gives to all of them their names. The God who names and numbers the stars holds in his scarred hands the shards of your broken heart. Of this I am sure. The Bible offers good and realistic and powerful answers, but answers fall short without the pierced hands and feet of Jesus. Ordinary hospitality is the hands and feet of Jesus, and it holds people together with letters to prison or hugs. Hospitality reaches across worldview to the bridge of gospel grace. Jesus did not come with self-defense. He came with bread. He came with fish. So too must we. Just before Amy was moved from the county jail to begin her prison sentence in Georgia, she was baptized. She described what it was like to emerge from the water, to see her hands bound in chains and cuffs, the Carolina blue sky a backdrop of hope beyond the chains. I suspect that she understood something about Jesus in the backdrop of chains and cuffs that I'm still too dumb to appreciate. Well, that closes the book proper. Like I said, we'll do a conclusion next week. And just so you know, Pastor Andrew's off this week, so he will not be doing a Psalms Table Talk tomorrow. You can pick up with Luke on Thursday. Bye for now. We love you. So long.